Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Barry Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. So another in my in the news shows, and today, first up, we've got McEwen, two companies actually that are picks. One is McEwen Inc. and the other is Canadian Gold Corp. And what they announced today was a letter of intent. They've into a binding letter of intent in respect of a proposed transaction whereby McEwen would inquire all of the issued and outstanding securities of Canadian Gold Corp by way of a plan of arrangement. If the proposed transaction is completed, Canadian Gold Corp would become a wholly owned subsidiary of McEwen. Uh, the Canadian Gold Corp, as a principal asset, is 100% interest in the Tartan mine. That's located in Manitoba, Canada, near the town of Flin Flon. And what's interesting about this project is that it was a past producer, uh, which was producing when gold was a lot cheaper than it is now. It only produced for about 8 months or so. And then it went, due to the cheaper prices of gold, they had some problems. Subsequent years later, Canadian Gold Corp got their hands on the project. They've been drilling and hitting a lot of high-grade gold on that project. And it's a orogenic gold system. And what I find very exciting about that project is that it has excellent continuity of the high grade. Often in orogenic gold deposits, the high grade is sort of in smaller lenses, where this one has high grade gold mineralization that basically starts at or near surface and goes down for about 800 meters or more than 800 meters. I think it's close to 1,000 meters. And so to get that kind of continuity is very unique in an orogenic gold system. And I think that it's going to be a mine, a high grade gold mine, when it goes back into production, which they're moving it towards. Now, as they're moving it towards bringing it back into production, they've also been doing additional drilling on the main zone, and then they have a zone right beside it that they've not drilled a lot of holes into, but it's also hitting a lot of high grade and visible gold in that as well. So it looks like they've got a parallel zone there, and the possibility of additional zones. Recently, Canadian Gold Corp acquired two adjacent projects, so they have a big land package in and around this Tartan mine, and they also have a land package around Hammond Reef, the Hammond Reef mine, and Malartic South. So they have a very good pipeline of exploration projects with their Hammond Reef and Malartic South. And then they've got this Tartan mine that's got a lot of high grade in it. And it looks like it's going to be a future mine. And McEwen Inc. is taking a run at it. Now, I'm really happy to see McEwen Mining going after this asset because McEwen Mining is a junior gold miner, and they are acquiring projects at a very good time when they can get them at reasonable prices. And this is putting them in a good position to be increasing their production over the medium term and longer term. In the short term, they're also bringing a new project into production, which is their or new mine into production on an old mine, which is the Stock mine. They've recently broke ground on that and they're getting underway. They've got three zones to mine there. What's interesting about that is that it will give them the ability to increase their production and bring down their costs. And then just last week, McEwen Inc. also announced that they've They've hit high grade gold, 36 grams over 10 meters, and other good hits in there last week on the right beside their Froome mine. And it was looking like Froome was getting towards the end of its mining days. And now it's like got a whole new life. And they're building underground workings to get over to that second deposit and keep Froome in production. So they haven't given any guidance as to what they're looking at as far as production in 2026, but I think you're going to see a significant update or upgrade in their ounces produced. In 2025, they're going to produce about 135,000 ounces, which is around their guidance. And I think we're 2026 could see them increase that production. And another reason that I really like McEwen Inc. is, of course, they've got a world-class Los Azules copper development project in their subsidiary private company called McEwen Copper. And you look at McEwen Copper, the Coles notes on that are that it is in the top 10 of undeveloped copper mines in the world, and it's in the lowest cost quartile. So it looks like it's going to be a multi-decade mine of the future when the world needs a lot more copper mines being built. We're seeing waves of new demand coming. We've got electric vehicles in the last few years. We've got cryptocurrencies that need a lot of copper for their data centers and the energy. We've got cloud computing, technology, rebuilding old infrastructure in developed economies, building new infrastructure, energy or power grid in developing economies. And not too long from now, we're going to have robots, and all of these things require a lot of copper, and the copper supply chain is very weakened. And so if you look at the combination of the various assets that McEwen Inc. has, their gold mining operations would be considered a junior gold miner with a good profile to increase their production and bring down their costs. And then they've got the copper asset that they're looking at taking public. And I'm really excited about them taking that public because 46% of that company is owned by McEwen Inc. Another 12 or so percent is owned by Rob McEwen. Around 15% is owned by Rio Tinto, their venture called Newton. And then Stellantis, one of the world's largest car makers, is also about, I think, 16 or 17%. So in those four entities, all the stock is tied up. I think when it goes public on the New York Stock Exchange, it's going to be under hot demand because there's not very much supply of stock, and the generalist investors that want access to copper assets in a company that can grow quite substantially. I mean, the majors can grow and see their stock perform well with the higher prices of copper, but a developer has a lot more blue sky in it. And so, whether I look at it as a copper developer with a junior gold miner kicker or a junior gold miner with a world-class copper development asset as a kicker. Either way, I think it's offering a tremendous amount of value. Just for I've done recently some homework on what is the market value of a company that produces about 100,000 ounces of gold, and that can range anywhere from about 800 million to a couple billion. And right now, the company I think sits at about a $500 million valuation. So just on the gold asset alone, the gold assets alone, I think that McEwen is undervalued. And then you get the copper kicker, the development kicker. So, that's why McEwen Inc. is one of my favorite picks. And I think they've got a lot of blue sky ahead of them. And of course, Canadian Gold Corp, I'm happy for their shareholders because they get shares. It's a stock deal, so they get shares in McEwen Inc. And I think they're going to do very well owning shares in McEwen Inc. based on what I just talked about. And so this is a very interesting deal. McEwen Inc. and Canadian Gold Corp. And I'm quite optimistic about where that's going to take the McEwen Inc. Once they get their hands on Canadian Gold Corp if it all goes through. And so that's the news on McEwen Inc. and Canadian Gold Corp. Next up is Goliath Resources. And Goliath had news out today. Goliath intersects 11 grams per ton of gold over 4.85 meters. They maintain a 100% hit rate for mineralization in their drilling. They've drilled, I think, over a couple hundred holes on that project, and they get gold mineralization in every hole. 94% of the holes contain visible gold. And you can look at the various different hits here of gold. But what really tells the story to me is this map down here. I keep on emphasizing this to my audience whenever I talk about um, uh, Goliath Resources due to the distribution of visible gold in the system. So this is the Sherbet discovery. And all these red lines here are all the places where the drill holes have intersected visible gold that's naked to the naked eye, that you can see it with the naked eye. And this is a tremendous amount of visible gold. If you look from this edge all the way up here, you're looking at about 800 meters. If you look from this edge over here, or actually over a kilometer, over 1,000 meters, and then if you look at this side to this side, you're looking at about a 800, 6 to 800 meters from side to side, and that almost goes from here all the way, and it keeps on going. And so to have that much distribution, that widespread distribution of visible gold is quite unique and makes this sherbet discovery exceptional. And now also what's interesting is you'll see this groove here, and that's a structure that's and these are important because as you can see, when they get into the gold mineralization, there's a significant amount that's right around this structure. And then you see other structures here that are kind of the surface expression of deep cracks in the earth. That's what the fluids that have the gold in them use as a conduit for them to get the gold to get closer to surface. And now what's also interesting is you can't see it here, but if you keep following this structure, these three structures all come together down here, which is close to the valley floor. And so when you see these big cracks and this much distribution of the gold, the visible gold, and it's contained within a series of stacked veins that are gently dipping. It's much like what you see at the Pogo mine, which is one of North America's great mines. It has a series of gently dipping stacked veins. And what's also interesting is coming up vertically is reduced intrusion related gold dikes. And there are spots where these dikes and these stacked zones they cross cut. And these are being called Goldilocks zones because everything is just right there for you're getting two sources of enrichment and two different temperature regimes. And so there's multiple locations where these vertical reduced intrusion related gold dikes and the flat lying or gently dipping veins crosscut. And so you could have just a multitude of these Goldilocks zones. And then recently, they've also found over here uh, a a different, a third distinct rock package with visible gold in it, and that's in an altered breccia unit. And there's a possibility, a quite a high possibility. It's not a probability until you start drilling into it, but oftentimes the breccia unit can be sitting right above the magmatic source of what drove all that gold mineralization into three distinct rock packages. And to get visible gold in three distinct rock packages makes this a very unique system. And what I believe is happening is that at depth, around where the valley floor starts or slightly below the valley floor, is a magmatic intrusion that has the right temperature and the right pressure to then, when that pressure is released, the gold bearing fluids make their way up into these three distinct rock packages. And to have that with visible gold in all three distinct rock packages suggests that there's a very, that source is a very powerful and long-lived system. And so that's why I consider this my highest conviction gold exploration company with an important discovery. And in the Golden Triangle, one of the recent great ones was the Brucejack deposit that was owned by Pretium. And viewers and listeners to my show, viewers of my shows and readers of my reports will know that I picked Pretium very early in their success, and they went on to be taken over by Newmont, another of my picks. And so that is the last great high grade gold discovery, and the one that really put the Golden Triangle on the map, if you will, was the Eskay Creek discovery. So those are two of the most important in the last 40 years or so. And I think that there's a very good possibility that um, Goliath could have a more important discovery than the Brucejack deposit, and it could possibly even rival the Eskay Creek deposit. Now, our mine. Now, that's a very big statement, but when I see this much visible gold in what I'm now calling the Golden Mountain, with it distributed all inside the Golden Mountain. It's quite an exceptional project. And they just, every time they put out more drill results, they find more high grade gold. And it's just a really exceptional discovery that doesn't come around very often. And I think it's got a very bright future. So stay tuned for more assay results because they're in the midst of a very aggressive drill program. In this announcement, they also talk about having completed 25,000 meters with 9 drill holes. And folks, that is tremendously good work. They only got started about a month ago and they've already drilled 25,000 meters. And so they're on schedule and maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule to complete 60,000 meters, which is all financed and it's all paid for. And so, yeah, they're going to have a stream of assay results out from here until the end of the year, 2025, and maybe even into 2026. So, yeah, they're doing great work. They got lots of money. They got a tremendous project. They got great shareholders. Rob McEwen is a big shareholder, as is McEwen Mining is a significant shareholder as well. They've got others in there. Eric Sprott's in there. There's a fund out of Singapore that's in there with a significant position. And there's other funds in there. And so, yeah, it's quite an exciting project, and that's why it is my highest conviction pick for a gold explorer with an important discovery. All right. So next up is Hercules. And Hercules Metals had news out today that I think is just a phenomenal news release. And here it is. Let me get to it. Hercules Metals enters into strategic agreement with Barrick to consolidate 73-kilometer claim belt around its Leviathan copper discovery in Idaho. Here's the highlights. Barrick increases its equity stake in the company and positions Hercules to advance a district scale exploration strategy moving forward. Agreement grants Hercules an option to acquire the 73-kilometer Olympus claim belt, extending in both directions from its Leviathan porphyry copper discovery, and expands the company's total land position from 26,000 acres to 100,000 acres. They announced that they're pleased to announce that Hercules and its U.S. subsidiary Anglo Beaumark, which they call Anglo, have entered into a strategic option agreement with Barrick, Gold Exploration, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Barrick Mining Corp, to lead a consolidated district scale exploration strategy and earn 100% interest in over 74,000 acres of unpatented mining claims surrounding the company's Hercules property and the flagship Leviathan porphyry discovery in western Idaho. In exchange, Barrick will increase its equity position in the company. Chris Paul, who's the CEO and director of Hercules, commented, and I quote, consolidating the 73-kilometer Olympus copper belt represents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Hercules shareholders and signifies a strong endorsement of our team's execution and vision. We are honored by Barrick's confidence as we advance Leviathan alongside a greatly expanded district-scale exploration strategy moving forward. The Leviathan system hosts evidence of a rare and exceptional copper-silver enrichment event which formed during a regional tectonic episode that potentially affected the entire Olympus belt of claims, make it one of the largest and most compelling new copper projects in the United States today. The transaction comes at a time of major change for mining in the United States, with significant tailwinds in the form of streamlined federal permitting and a potential 50% tariff on foreign copper. The impacts of this, alongside rising prices and declining reserves in the U.S., positions Hercules to deliver exceptional value for our shareholders moving forward, end quote. And so he makes some great points there. They basically got the bookends to their Leviathan project. And there's a map. I'm going to talk about something later, but this whole belt is prospective for copper porphyries. And it looks like from the recent drilling information and updates that Hercules has put out, is that they're adding drills, and also they've done a model based on their geophysical and drilling, and they feel like they've got a great model that they're testing currently with the drilling, and they're having good success with it, and those assays are pending. In his quote, he also mentions about the tailwinds of a possible 50% tariff on copper coming into the United States. Now, it's important to note that only less than 50% of the copper that the end users in the United States need comes from inside of America. So obviously, America needs more copper mines. And that's why they're streamlining the federal permitting. And Chris also makes a point of saying that the rising prices and declining reserves in the U.S. Well, they're not just declining in the United States; they're declining everywhere. And the supply chain of copper is really broken when you consider how much is needed for, as I mentioned earlier in the show, for things like artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, technology, the internet, rebuilding ancient and old power grids in developed economies, building new ones in developing economies. And now, not too far into the future, we got more demand coming from artificial intelligence, more demand coming from robots. And so there's waves of new demand that's usage that's going to need a lot of copper. And the copper industry is relying on old deposits that were found decades ago. In the last 25 years or so, the discoveries have fallen off a cliff and they're lower grade and they're deeper. And so the supply chain, and then you also look at development projects, and there's not enough pipeline of development projects to feed the old mines that are running out of copper production. And so the supply chain is really broken, and America wants more copper production, but you need to go out and find them and develop them and bring them onto production, and that takes time. And so copper prices are very buoyant, and I think that they're going to go a lot higher. Now, this map is something that I really wanted to highlight because if you look at this map, you'll see a structure here that goes right up into where they've made their Leviathan discovery, right in here somewhere. And these cracks in the earth, if you will, are called structures or shears or faults. They're basically cracks in the earth, and these kind of things are your surface expressions of those deep cracks, and they come right up. They go right through this one package of barrack ground, right through the Hercules project, and so this whole belt here, this whole system, all the way from way up here, all the way down through here, even through here, you can see another of these big cracks. I would guess that that had a lot to do with why Barrick staked this ground after Hercules made their initial porphyry discovery. And then down here, there's also interesting ground that is part of this package that Hercules is going to acquire from Barrick. But I'm really quite intrigued about these structures that are, going from basically through Hercules ground and all the way through Barrick's ground and over here and others over here. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic acquisition that basically gives uh, um, Hercules the entire, well, quite an important part, the key parts of a big structural corridor that I think is ripe for the discovery of epithermal veins porphyries, as well as epithermal vein systems coming off of them. And so, very exciting acquisition for Hercules. And plus, they're doing a lot of great work right now on their drilling at their up in here at their Leviathan discovery. And yeah, I think it's a heck of a good discovery. I've reached out to Chris Paul to try and get him on an interview. So yeah, I'm working on it, folks. I'm working on all angles, if you will. But really good news for one of my picks, Hercules, and I really think this is a great deal. Oh, by the way, you'll want to look at the overview of the transactions. It's about totaling $8 million Canadian that they've got to pay over 3 years, and really if you consider what it would have cost them to acquire all this land through staking, that covers a good chunk of what they've staked, the staking costs alone. So they got it at a reasonable price, and part of it can be in a cash deal, and part of it can be in stock. And so I think it's a great deal for both Barrick become it makes Hercules a more impressive company, and Barrick owns a big chunk of Hercules, and they can increase their position. Plus, yeah, it's just a. I'm pretty impressed with this deal that Hercules Metals has been able to pull off with Barrick. And as Chris said, it also, if Barrick is going to hand over that ground, they obviously think the Hercules guys are doing really good exploration work. So however you slice it, however you look at it, I think it's a great deal for Hercules. Okay, Rackla. Rackla had news out today as well. And Rackla is looking for a system called a reduced intrusion related gold system, like Snowline Gold has made their big discovery over in the Yukon, and this project's in the Northwest Territories. And what they talk about, Rackla Metals pleased to provide a project update on drilling and other developments at their Grad property in the Northwest Territories of Canada. They announced that drilling is progressing well at the property with a single drill rig on the property. Crews are averaging approximately 50 meters per shift with rig turning 24/7. I would guess that they're probably running two shifts, but I'm not, that's a guess. The drill is presently on the fourth hole with a target depth of 400 meters. Two holes were drilled from pad A, G25-001, ended at 208 meters, and G2502 ended at 330 meters. One hole was drilled from pad C for 442 meters. All drill holes to date have shown a consistent set of sheeted quartz sulfide tourmaline veins. That's what you want in these reduced intrusion related gold systems, with vein density averaging between 5 to 10 per meter and occasionally higher. So that was the noted thing about the Snowline discovery, is they often talked about the density, because these are small veinlets that are coming up in the drill hole. And when they have a high density, 5 to 10 per meter, it's an indication that you've got one of these exciting reduced intrusion related gold systems. We don't know if it's gold, the veins are loaded up with gold, but they have evidence based on their surface sampling that they should. Okay. The veins and the vein margins contain bismuth sulfides, chalcopyrite, and pyrrhotite. Sections of strongly I always screw this word up, sericite, and quartz diorite. And so these are alteration that are important in these kind of uh, discoveries, and they've observed that in all drill holes to date. The intensely altered sections exhibit less veining but host disseminated bismuth sulfides, and that's important in these kind of deposits. The first three holes have been logged and are currently being cut. The first shipment of drill core will be submitted to the lab today. So depending on how long it takes, they estimate that'll be somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 weeks to get those assays back. And so here you can see the three holes that they drilled. One was along here, And then the second hole from the same drill pad went off into the mountains more. And this one's below this, where they got a lot of the surface sampling with very good grades in it. And I think you can see an intensity of the veining has increased as you get about a third of the way through this hole and continues right to the end of the hole. So that's very exciting. Uh, Here they talk about the dip. So these are all negative 50 degrees. So this one is going at a 50-degree angle and heading into the mountain. This one was kind of along the side of the mountain. This one is below that and cutting what looks like very. This could be the most. This is the most intensity of veining compared. This one only had a little bit of veining at the end and a little bit here and a little bit there. This one had more veining, but these are probably high in the system. And now, as they start to get down into the veins that outcrop throughout this mountain, look at the intensity of veining that starts right about here and continues right to the end of the hole. Very encouraging stuff. And here they show some of the bismuth and some of the rock sampling that carried some good grades. Um, they show their climbers up the side of the mountain taking samples. Let's see, here is pad E, D, F, and here are the three that have been the three pads and one, two, three, and I think they've got more heading out there. These are proposed holes. Yes, proposed holes are in white with the white noting this white noting where the drill pad is located. Okay, and then Simon Ridgway, who's a very talented guy in the mining business. This isn't his first rodeo. He's the CEO, and he stated, "We're very pleased with the progress we have made to date and how rapidly we have been able to advance this target. The 2025 exploration season has presented some challenges, including a late start due to a slow spring melt and a very wet start to the summer season, but our crews have been able to make significant progress. The planned 4,000-meter drill program will test an area measuring 600 meters by 350 meters by 500 meters, with the goal of demonstrating continuity to the mineralized zone at the BITE discovery. With success, the company plans to submit a permit application for an airstrip and camp on the property to support a much larger program in 2026." So this end quote. So this is kind of a first pass of drilling. Last year, they built up the targets with these surface sample locations with very good distribution of samples, and they even did a channel cut in there that's represented by this. And so now they're getting a series of holes in their first pass, and certainly looking like they've got something on their hands here that could be, let's say, a Snowline 2.0, if you will. Now, of course, we need to see the assay results, and I'm really intrigued by this density of the veining in this hole here. I think that should have some very good results. I think this one could have some very good results, and let's see what happens as they drill into the mountain. They got some setups on the mountain, so really exciting stuff for Rackla. Take a look at Rackla. RAK is their symbol, and they trade on the venture. The final company that had news out today was Norsemont, and they provided a corporate update and clarifies information regarding its Choquilimpe gold, silver, copper project. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly, although I live in Mexico and everybody speaks Spanish around me. My Spanish is still pretty brutal. So I think I got it right. Choco Limpe. They gave a corporate update, and I don't want to get too much into this because I did an interview this afternoon that I'm going to put out in the morning with Mark Levy about some stuff that has been said on the by some internet trolls about this project, and they basically came out with a news release that refutes all of this inaccurate statements about the company. And yeah, I have a read of this, and I encourage you to or watch the interview that I did with Mark Levy, who's the CEO. Before I close on this company, I'll quote Mark, and he said, "I am deeply disappointed by the malicious and false information campaign that has unfortunately created confusion amongst our investors. However, this news clarifies the facts, highlights the strong fundamentals of our robust project, and puts an end to the unfounded and inaccurate rumors being spread. With the continued support of our community and the government, we look forward to advancing Chocolimpe through further drilling of several higher grade gold zones, testing for copper porphyry, and progressing our mined stockpiles towards production. We sincerely thank our stakeholders for their ongoing support," end quote. So, they kind of sometimes these internet trolls can be pretty aggressive, and facts don't stop them from putting out inaccuracies. But I think that this is a good news release, and we covered a lot of great information in that interview that I'll put out tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for that. Uh, I'll give you a heads up on news that I'm going to be talking about later this week in my In the News. Agnico Eagle, which has been my key major mining gold pick since way back here and has done tremendously well, is putting out their second quarter report. Now, I would highlight that this second quarter of 2025 was the highest average gold price ever for a quarter. And what has fueled a lot of this run in the stock from around $60, I think on the low here was around 58.70, and closed today at $169.98. A lot of that has been a dual combination. One is the performance of gold, which they have significantly outperformed. But secondly, they've had a series of record free cash flow per quarter for a number of quarters in a row now. And I don't think it takes a lot of arm waving to be optimistic about the second quarter that's coming out later this week, because, as I said, it was the best quarter ever for the average price of gold through for a quarter. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that quarterly report. Newmont had a great one out last week. And on the weekend, I talked about it in the context of comparing it to Newmont, or sorry, Newmont's quarterly report to Tesla. And you wouldn't believe that Agnico Eagle is making about 10 times the free cash flow that Tesla is making. And I think we're going to be able to make that same comparison or similar when Agnico Eagle puts out their quarterly report later this week. So stay tuned for that show. And another of my top picks is Alamos Gold. And Alamos is also going to be putting out their quarterly report. Now, Alamos is what I consider the best um, uh, mid-tier gold miner. And when I say the best, it basically comes down to how well they manage their costs. They produce gold for less than the average cost of their peers, and they are bringing new production online that will bring them down even a few $100s more from their peers. So they will be one of the lowest cost gold miners in the business as they bring their new mines into production. They're replacing their old mines with new mines and still getting more good stuff out of their current mines. And they've got a great pipeline. They keep really tight controls on their costs. And they also have significantly outperformed gold. So back in early 2024, the low back then was about $11 a share. It closed today at 25.33. And I'll note that you see how it's following this 50-day moving average. I think it's ready for a significant breakout. And you see the same thing happening with Agnico Eagle, which I just talked about, and and gold. So I think that they're going to also have a great quarterly report out this week, and so I'll be talking about that later. But I wanted to sort of give all my audience an update or a heads up, if you will, that big news is coming out for both of these companies, and it's all about the free cash flow. All right. So let's look at gold because you notice again here, just like Agnico Eagle and just like Alamos, the 50-day moving average has been going sideways and it's starting to bend upwards. Today it got smacked pretty good below the 50-day moving average, and that's happened three times of late recently. This is the third time, and each time it's come back quite nicely. This pullback here got it down to 32.66, and then it ran up to 34.41. So that was quite a nice move. But what I'm really bullish on is this basing period, and then in the latter end of this basing period, it's really got into a tight range right around that 50-day moving average. And so the fundamentals of gold are very strong. And I think that this sell-off today was people are saying it's because of uh, the European Union and the United States coming to terms on the tariffs. Others are talking about the options expiration, but gold moves from day to day. That's not really what excites me. It's what's fueled this move from here when it was trading at a little above the $2,000 per ounce, and then when it broke out above 2,100, and it's just been making a series of record highs. It's gone through a basing period. Here's another basing period before a big run. Here's another basing period before a big run. And there was another basing period about as long as this one prior to this big rally. So I think gold is primed to rally, but what's causing it to go from the lower left of the chart to the upper right is the buying of the BRICS nations that are loading up. And I think the reason that they're loading up, one of those is that the fiat currency and debt system is broken, and the only way to fix it is with gold. And so that's why the BRICS nations are buying a lot of gold, and recently silver, platinum, palladium, copper have all increased quite dramatically in price and are also having important breakouts. And what that tells me is that we're in the early days of the next great metals bull market. Now, some people look at things like copper, platinum, palladium, and even silver to a degree, and say, well, if there's all this debt and all this fiat currency destruction of the purchasing power, isn't that going to make industrial work or in the economy slow down? And what's not being talked about a lot lately is that the money supply is cranking up again. So they're printing money to juice up the economic growth. Well, if they do that, then that's going to look after the economic demand for these metals. And then you've got other reasons why they're buoyant, but ultimately I think that they're really the US dollar has been under a lot of pressure over this entire year. It's the worst start to a year since 1973. And I think that the US dollar has more downside risk to it as well. Trump wants a lower dollar to spur exports, making it cheaper for foreigners to buy US goods. It also makes US, who imports a lot of their stuff, things more expensive. So, how this uh, juggling of the balls works out, we'll see. I think it's going to cause inflation and it's going to cause a slowing of the economy, which will make for stagflation, which is very bullish for gold and silver. And even in a stagflationary environment, they'll crank up the printing press of the fiat currencies to try and stimulate the economy and spend more, and so that will spur demand for things like copper, platinum, palladium, silver on the industrial side of things. So yeah, I think these are all part and parcel of what has been driving gold and other metals into what is this brand new start of a metals bull market that I think will ultimately rival the 2001 to 2011 metals bull market. And I think it will last longer and it will be more powerful. On that note, as always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. My shows are for information purposes only. I'm not making buying or selling recommendations. I'm merely an idea generator that you then have to go and do your homework, assess your risk profile, and make your decisions after you've done that. But again, I try to be an idea generator, and that's it. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.